Hello friends, Adam here with FED. So today, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light comes out on the Nintendo Switch. Or it already has come out at this point. And I'm pretty excited about it. But the thing is with FE1 is it is very cryptic and archaic in the way that it works. And the biggest part about Fire Emblem, generally, is all the characters, and you really want to recruit all of them, regardless of even if you want to use them. But recruiting them is just like a cool thing, and you get cool. It might be you get an item or a cool conversation out of it. But the game doesn't do a very good job of telling you how to do it. So, my goal today is to give you a story spoiler-free, complete character recruitment and thoughts on the character guide, so that you can be well informed for your entire playthrough of FE1. Now, a lot of the stuff is going to be my opinion, but there are going to be some, just like the hard facts and stuff are going to be on screen about like how you recruit, how the item you use to promote, their base stats, their growth rates, all that stuff. Things I'll touch on, but because there are like 52 characters in this game, I'm going to be moving pretty quick. So I'm sorry if I move a little fast where you might need to pause, rewind, or something. But my goal is to just get through every single character without spoiling the story of the game or the game much at all. Just so you know what you're getting into. So, first, we have Marth, main character of the game. His class is Lord. His base stats are semi-underwhelming, but he has some of the best growth rates in the game. They are pretty good. Marth's biggest selling point is that enemies will always go after him if they can, and they can do damage to him. So he has what would be called provoke in like the Teleus games. So enemies will always attack Marth, which is something you can really use to your advantage. So you really want to train Marth the best you can, make him a really good unit, because he's also required to beat the game. He's in every single map. He has to seize or get to the throne or the gate of the map on every single chapter. And not only that, you really want to use him because he has not one, not two, but three extremely good swords that are locked to him, only he can use. So, yeah, use Marth. He's good. Train him up. This is probably his best appearance in the entire series. All right, next we have Ceda, the Pegasus Knight. Ceda is... So, flying is really good. This is probably one of the games where flying is the least useful, just because you can't rescue and stuff like that. But it still allows you to ignore terrain and move very far. Ceda has some really good base stats, honestly, and good growths as well. I think her main selling point is her weapon level, which weapon level is kind of like weapon ranks in Three Houses. Your weapon level just goes up it's like another stat. It can go up when you level up. Her weapon level at base, I believe, is 7, which is pretty good. It allows her to use most lances in the game, and her growth rate in that stat is 80. So at level up, she has an 80% chance of raising her weapon level, which is honestly good enough to where she'll be able to use any lance in the game or any sword in the game relatively quickly. So, and that's a big deal. Being able to use like a silver lance in the first couple of chapters is big. She'll be able to use the Gradavis if you want. She is a really solid unit in my opinion, and definitely worth using. Okay, next we have Jagan. He is a pre-promote, they call him. He starts off as a Paladin, and he has generally higher bases than the rest of your team, but his growth rates are really bad. They're really bad. So he's the kind of character that if you like a growth unit, don't use him as much. He's easy to replace, I guess is what I'm trying to say later on. But if you want to play the game in the quote-unquote most efficient way, Jagan is going to be really key to that. Feeding him stat boosters and stuff is also a really great way to make him reliable throughout the entire game. Just because stat boosters in FE1 are pretty insane, and I won't ruin how much they do and what they do, but they're pretty cool. So you can make him just insane and just beat the game. And because the stat caps are all so low at 20, his semi-low stats aren't going to hurt him that much. So, yeah. And when I say stats, I mean growth rates. So good unit. Use him. All right, next we have Kane. Kane the Social Knight. Or that's the old translation. Now he's probably going to be Cavalier in this translation. Kane the Cav. Kane and Abel, they both joined at the very beginning, along with, Jake and Ceda and Marth. Kane has like a higher strength base, but a lower speed base than Abel. But his growths are kind of the opposite of that. The thing is, Kane is... It's hard to say which one's really better, Kane and Abel. You can really pick which one you want to use or just use them both. They're both Paladins. They're both great. They're both Cavaliers and promote to Paladins with a Knight's Crest. And they can be just great all game long. They have good growths, good bases, and just can do some good work for you. Abel, I will say, generally will have a higher weapon level, and that is a big point in his favor. Again, weapon level is really important in this game, and I think it's more important than just about any other stat. All right, next, again, joining at the start of Chapter 1, we have Drog, the Armor Knight. So Armor Knights don't promote in this game, which is really lame, but Drog does have really high defense. He's your highest defense unit at the start of the game, so that's some merit, but generally I find myself kind of ditching him relatively quickly. He doesn't grow as quickly with other people as other units, and he has really low movement at only 5 move, so he's not going to be able to keep up with, Kane, Abel, Jagan, Ceda, or even Marth. So it's hard for me to suggest using Drog when there are just better alternatives. Next, we have Gordon the Archer, also joining at the start of Chapter 1. Archers are not my favorite class. I don't like archers all that much. He also has 5 move, which is a huge, it hurts him really bad. And the thing is, there's a couple units that join later that just kind of invalidate Gordon. And by invalidate, I just mean, if you want to have a bunch of archers, have a bunch of archers. But just there's other units that join, even like the next chapter. There's a unit that joins that I think is just straight up better than Gordon in almost every way. So Gordon's pretty bad. Pretty bad. He fill a spot until you can replace him, and then I would just get rid of him personally. All right, next we have Rhys, Rhys. I don't know how to pronounce it. Either way, we have our first priest. You recruit him by visiting the village near the Seas Point on the first chapter. Really, he's just early game healer. He's not going to do much of anything else. Leveling up priest is really just stupid in this game, to be honest. They don't get experience from using healing magic or using staves. They only get experience from surviving combat. So they can't deal damage, but if they enter a round of combat with an enemy and survive, they get a bunch of experience. So that's the only way to level up Rhys, and it's honestly just not worth it. Just use him to heal things, but he'll be fine. There's not much else to use for him. There's other priests that come later that can do a better job than him without any investment. So Rhys is good for healing. That's about it. Okay, Agma is the beginning of the chapter 2. He is your first mercenary. It's a fairly common class throughout the game. Mercenaries are generally pretty quick, fast with speed, and just kind of like good combat units. And Agma is no exception. He has very solid combat. Base 12 speed is awesome. He'll double just about everything. 6 strength is a bit lacking, but he joins early enough that he has plenty of time to grow, especially with his pretty solid growth rates, honestly. 40% strength is pretty good. The 70% weapon level is awesome. And 80% HP is okay. Not okay. That's pretty good too. But I'd rather if he had a little more I don't know, say strength or something or speed, I'd be a little more impressed. But his bases are good enough to carry him for the most part. So Agma's really good. There's no reason not to use him unless you just want to replace him with someone else. Solid unit is all I'll say. All right, next we have Barst. Barst also joins at the start of Chapter 2. He has honestly some of the most solid growth rates in the game, but he also can't promote, so that is a bit of a point against him. But he also is one of the few units that uses axes, so that's a whole thing too. So he kind of can capitalize on just that alone. Axes aren't the best weapon in this game, but you'll have some laying around, and you might as well use them, right? If you want to. But like I said, his growth rates are honestly really impressive, and he joins early enough to be able to use them. And he has one of, if not the highest, defensive growth rates in the game at 50%, which is way higher than anyone else, than the majority of the cast, where you have things like, Marth only has 20, Ceda 20, Jig and 0, Kane 20. 20 is pretty much like the average. Like between 20 and like 10 is like average for defense growth, and he has 50. So that is definitely a point in his favor. And then just the rest of his growths are pretty solid. His bases are good enough. 10 strength is actually 10 strength is actually really good. Sorry, I'm just looking at it again. His weapon level of 6 is good enough to use every axe in the game, so that's not even an issue. But yeah, he'll grow into a good unit if you want to use him. But again, doesn't promote, which is not very fun. All right, next we have Board. Board is basically Board and Cord. They joined at the exact same time with Barst and Agma. Board and Cord are pretty unimpressive. I mean, if you want to use one of these axe fighters, use Barst. He's almost always going to be better, statistically speaking. Just bases and growths, generally Barst is just a better unit. But Board specifically, with the 90 HP is great. 50 strength, 50 skill. It can be a solid unit, but just, I don't know. I don't think he's worth the investment. And the same thing goes for Cord. He has 100 HP growth, which is pretty insane. That is the highest in the game. So he's going to gain a point of HP every single level up, which is awesome. But a 30% strength growth is pretty lacking. I don't like that very much. 50% weapon level growth is kind of lame. But I don't know. I shouldn't focus so much on growth, really. Bases are what matter the most. But yeah, his bases are bad too. I don't know. I wouldn't worry about using Board or Cord. And if you want to use one of these axe fighters, Barst is probably the pick. Also in Chapter 2, we have Caster. Caster is recruited by Ceda. So you have Ceda talk to Caster. They have a cute little convo, and he'll join your team. He's a hunter, and his stats... So a hunter is basically just an archer with a slightly different stat spread. So he's essentially just kind of better Gordon. He has more move. He has 6 bases of move instead of 5. And just better combat stats all around. If you want to use an archer in the early game, I'd prefer to use Caster over Gordon almost every time. Also in Chapter 2, Daros. He's recruited by Marth. You just have Marth go talk to him. He's in the top starting group of enemies. Talk to him with Marth. He'll join the team. I don't know. Kind of along the same lines as like Board and Cord. Just really unimpressive axe fighter guy. If you want to use him, you can. But again, he doesn't promote. So, yeah, pretty unimpressive. I'm not a big fan. Moving on to Chapter 3, we have Julian. Julian is a thief who starts at the very beginning. His stats don't really matter. But he is, utility. Opens doors, opens chests, lowers drawbridges in a couple of instances. So, yeah, Julian is definitely worth deploying in those specific instances. His combat is trash, though. Don't even try to use him for combat. He's stuck to like the weakest sword in the game too, so that's a whole thing. Don't even worry about his combat. He's just a great utility unit. Next we have joining at the exact same time as Julian, we have Lena or Rena or whatever the translation is now. Lena is a priest. She comes with the warp staff, and that is all she wrote. She heals really well, and she has a warp staff. And she can use it at base. So she totally just like invalidates Rhys. I mean, if you want more than one healer on the field the first couple chapters, then deploy them both. But Lena is insanely useful just for warp alone. So especially warp is just really good. You can skip entire maps if you want to. Otherwise, just a solid healer. Now for the enemy joining in Chapter 3, we have Navarre. So to recruit Navarre, you have to have Ceda go talk to him. So that's you're going to see that's kind of a theme. It's either Marth or Ceda talks to people, except for a couple of unique instances. Anyways, Ceda talks to Navarre. He joins the team. And he's also a mercenary, the exact same class as Agma. In more modern versions of this game, he is a swordmaster or a myrmidon to start, rather than being a mercenary, the same class. But that class just doesn't exist yet. So he is a mercenary. And I don't know, it's kind of the... Agma has better bases overall, I believe. But Navarre can grow slightly better. Like, he has a 50% strength growth compared to Agma's 40. 50% speed growth compared to Agma's like 30. So like he can grow better, but that's like a chance thing, whereas Agma is just starts off as a generally better character as far as just their stat spread goes. Okay, moving on to the next chapter, which is chapter 4. We have Merrick. I like Merrick a lot, just because I like his character a lot. It's a little bit of a bias thing. He's your first mage you get. I love mages. Mages are dope. And he has a fairly decent stat spread. Strength doesn't matter for mages in this game because it doesn't affect the damage you deal with your magic weapons. So the most important stats for your mages are your weapon level and your speed. So you want to be able to double attack, and also you want to be able to use stronger spells. And Merrick doesn't have much of an issue getting to a point where he will be doubling, and he will be able to use just about any. He'll be able to use just about any weapon in the game. Any magic weapon in the game. On top of that, he comes with. I believe he comes with Excalibur. I could be wrong on that for some reason. That he does in the newer games, but for some reason I feel like that's wrong here. Anyways, to recruit him, you just visit the North Village in this chapter. In chapter 4. Chapter 4. Yeah, worth using. I like Merrick a lot. Alright, next we have Mathis, who is an enemy cavalier in chapter 4. You talk to him with Lena, the priest you got last chapter. And, if you want to go for 100% recruitment, go for it, but I think he's pretty bad. He's not that great of a unit. His base stats are bad. I think his base stats are actually, somewhat comparable to, Cain and Abel. And Cain and Abel, actually, I think they're worse than Cain and Abel, looking at it right now. And Cain and Abel join, 3 chapters earlier and have probably had a chance to get at least 2 or 3 levels, or maybe 1 or 2 levels, I should say, at this point. And they should just be better than Mathis now class him. There's really not a spot on the field for Mathis when he joins. I just bench him right away, usually. Not a big fan. Alright, moving on to Chapter 5. Chapter 5, we get a freaking ton of new units, most of which are pretty bad. So let's go over them. Let's go over these guys. So these first, 5 units, they just join at the beginning of the chapter. They're just your friends right from the get-go. We have Hardened, who is a Cavalier, and he is probably the best of the starting 5 here. Level 6, solid bases. He can use the silver sort of base. I think he can use the silver lancet base as well, which is great. So that's just a bunch of extra damage. And then his growth rates are kind of whatever. Kind of like pretty much every character in this game. Growth rates aren't that important. I should stress that more. Growth rates aren't what make a character in this game. But his weapon level growth is great, so he'll be able to use anything. Just after a few levels, really, he'll be able to use the Gradavis, which is a really, really powerful weapon. Powerful lance if you want him to. Yeah, Harden is probably your best bet if you want to use one of these 5 guys. Really, really good, in my opinion. All right, next, I'm just going to talk about these next 4 kind of in tandem. Actually, we'll talk about these next 2 and then the next 2. So we have Wolf and Sedgar, who are both horsemen, so they're mounted archers, essentially, which is cool and all. They don't promote. Their stats are pretty subpar. I would say Wolf stands out between them. He has better bases, and 9 speed is pretty good. But just overall, pretty unimpressive. And I don't like just bows aren't like the best weapon type in this game, to be fair, because enemies are pretty weak, so enemy phasing is pretty viable. If you want to use one of these 2 between Wolf and Sedgar, probably just go with Wolf. But yeah. All right, the next 2 we have Roche and Violend. I don't know if I said those right. But they're both Cavaliers. They're kind of a similar dynamic to Wolf and Sedgar. Roche is kind of the Wolf of this pair, where he has better bases just overall, and it's probably just the better pick overall if you want to use another Cavalier in this group that isn't Hardened. Go with Roche. And Violend is straight bench material, in my opinion. And now for an actual amazing unit in this same chapter. You speak with I believe he actually has to initiate the conversation on enemy phase. He'll either talk to Marth or Merrick. Wendell is a baller, dude. Wendell's super good. So his weapon level is high enough to use any staff or tome in the game, I believe, at base, which is great. And he has 14 speed. His growth rates are trash, but that's not super important because he has insane speed and insane staff utility. Wendell can use warp at base. He can use, big heals. Really, really great unit. Don't sleep on Wendell. Yes, bad growth unit, but if you just want a solid staffer and just like chipper, Wendell's your guy. Wendell's awesome. Big fan of Wendell. All right, next chapter is chapter 6, where we have Rickard. Rickard, you recruit him by either talking to him with Marth or Julian. So, yeah, talk to him with Marth or Julian. He's another thief. That's basically all he has to him. He's just another thief. Not going to be great for combat, but he's going to be fine for opening doors and chests and bridges and stuff. So if you need more than one thief for some reason, bring him. Otherwise, just use him or Julian. There's no real reason to use them both. Chapter 7, we have Bantu, who is a shape-shifting dragon guy, or a Manakite. Bantu, you just have to visit the village in the chapter with Marth, and he'll pop out, and you get to recruit him. He is required to recruit another character later on, so you definitely want to recruit him if you're going for full recruitment. But otherwise, I don't find him super impressive. So his whole gimmick really is that he has extremely high defense when he has a Dragonstone. So that's kind of his selling point. But other than that, it's kind of whatever. I don't really care to use him all that much. Chapter 8, we have 2 units that join at the exact same time, just at the beginning of the map. We have Rad and Caesar. So Rad and Caesar are both mercenaries. Again, similar dynamic to like Wolf and Sedgar. Caesar is level 3, Rad is level 1. Their bases kind of reflect that. Their growth rates are similar, if I am remembering correctly, where Rad has like generally like the better growth rates, especially in speed actually, which is interesting. Rad having 70 speed, Caesar having 20 speed. But regardless, I think Caesar, honestly, I don't care for either of these two. They're both pretty mediocre. We're definitely getting into the point of the game where they're giving you replacement units. That's just because FE1 is really, they designed it with permadeath in mind, which you don't see in like Fates, or you don't really see in Fates, or you just see in 3 Houses, where the game is giving you enough units to say, oh, if you let someone die, or someone died on the end of it, you don't have to reset for them. You can just keep playing the game, and you'll get someone to replace them. And that is like Rad and Caesar to a T. They are fairly unimpressive for their join time. Their base stats are bad. Not like when you compare them to like Agma and Navarre, it's not like their base stats are that bad. But the thing is, Agma and Navarre have already been around for a few chapters, like 3 or 4 chapters, and are probably just growing at this point. So it's not even like really worth using them in my opinion. Again, replacement units. They're okay if you want to replace dead units. There's an enemy recruit in that same chapter, Roger, the Armor Knight. So in chapter 8, you have Ceda talk to Roger, and he will join your team. It's actually a really funny, cute conversation. Definitely read that one. But he's an Armor Knight just like Drog, so again, no promotion, which is kind of lame. He only has 5 movement, and his stats are kind of whatever. His 13 defense is his selling point, but otherwise, I don't really care for Roger at all. He's definitely a meme in the community at this point, I think. But yeah, I don't know. Use him if you want to for some reason, because he has pink hair. I mean, his pink hair is pretty cute. It's pretty funny. But otherwise, no, not really worth using. Now we're getting to next string of units are actually all pretty interesting. So we have George the Sniper, which in chapter 9, you just visit the village with Marth. George pops out, and he is basically just promoted Gordon, right? Promoted Gordon, and his stats are pretty solid. He has good bases. 12 speed's awesome, so he'll actually double some things. Like Gordon probably won't. 7 strength is like a bit lacking at this point in the game, but it's okay. 7 movement is awesome. Way better than what Gordon is going to give you. And growth rates, again, they don't matter a whole lot, but they are a thing, I guess. And he has He has a 15 weapon level. I don't know, but his weapon level is already high enough to use anything, I believe. So, except for it's not high enough to use the Parthia yet, which is the best bow in the game, but he'll get there relatively quickly with just a few levels. He only needs 3 points of weapon level before he can use it, I believe. So yeah, if you want to use it, if you want to use an archer or a sniper character, George is probably your best bet. To be fair, low investment and just decent. Chapter 10, we have Maria. Maria, you have to recruit Maria to recruit the next character we're going to talk about. So to recruit Maria, you just talk to her with Marth. She is like in a prison cell. You have to like get to her and stuff. It's kind of annoying, but you can do it. But yeah, talk to her with Marth, and she'll join your team. She's another priest, staff bot. Her weapon level is, I believe that's high enough to use the warp staff at base, which is great. Yeah, it's high enough to use the warp staff at base. It's actually high enough to use any staff in the game at base, which is good. But you know, you're not going to use her for combat or anything, just as a healer. So if you need another healer, good replacement healer. I think she's definitely better than like Rhys or anything like that, but not as good as like Wendell or she might even be better than Lena in this game. I'm not really sure, but yeah, not as good as like Wendell though. But yeah, you need to recruit her to recruit this next character who is baller as heck, Minerva. Minerva is a dragon rider. To recruit her, you need to recruit Maria, and then Minerva will talk to Marth on enemy phase, I believe. Minerva has insane bases. 14 base defense on someone with 10 move. I don't know. You just don't see it in this game. You don't see that. Otherwise, just really high weapon level, using silver lance as a base, and can get to Gradavis pretty easily. 9 strength is pretty good. Yeah, Minerva is solid unit. Really good. Definitely would say yes. Use this unit. Very good unit. I just like Minerva a lot, so maybe a little bit of bias coming through. All right, chapter. Let me make sure I say the right one. Chapter 11. Linda. Not sure how to pronounce it. Visit the village with Marth in this chapter, and this mage lady will pop out. She is interesting. She's interesting. She comes at level 1 with, like passable level 1, like good level 1 stats. We'll say that. Good level 1 stats. But, this is like, 10 chapters into the game or 11 chapters in the game. She is, underleveled at this point. Merrick, if you've been using him, is probably like rolling pretty well. Got decent speed at this point, is doing well. Linda, her selling point though is that her growth rates are pretty awesome. 70 HP, 70 skill, 70 weapon level, 60 speed, 80 luck. Her selling point is that she does have a lot of room to grow and the ability to like actually grow really well. She has a lot of potential. So if you like that kind of unit, go for it. Otherwise, she's like kind of whatever in my opinion. She just joins a little too late for those bases in my opinion. But she'll be fine if you want to use her. Next we have Jake. Jake is the ballistician in chapter 11. Enemy ballistician. You have to talk to him with Ceda to recruit him. Jake has I don't know. His stats don't really matter. His selling point is his class. Ballistician, which has access to a special weapon type that has like really high might, essentially, like high might weapons that are low weapon level, like easy to use and high hit weapons. So he's not going to really double anything because all the weapons are like super heavy, but he can chip really hard. It's only 2 range. That's the thing that's kind of sad. It's not like ballisticians from like FE10. I mean FE11, where they just have like super long range weapons. It makes them like stupid useful. He's essentially just like a tank, like literally a tank. Like not like a tank in the sense that he has high defense, which he does, but like literally like he is driving a tank, which is pretty funny. So he has 14 defense, which is cool. I guess he can choke some stuff if you really want him to. But his big selling point is the weapon type he uses, for sure. Okay, now we're moving on. now we're moving on to a lot of scrubby units. Again, we're back to like a bunch of replacements joining the team in chapter 12. We'll start with Medea. I'm not sure how to say it quite right, but she is a paladin who just again joins from the start of the chapter. Paladin with decent replacement unit or decent just unit that you want in here. You definitely want to keep her alive because she is required to recruit another unit. Next we have Dolph, who is an armor knight. Pretty laughable unit. There's no really reason to use Dolph. The same goes for Macellin or McKellen. Not really quite sure how to say his name as well. But just kind of laughable stats and stuff. I think it's hilarious. These guys join at the same time and they have the same portrait. Which you'll see a lot in this game. There's a lot of shared portraits between enemies and especially between players too as well. And it's pretty funny and like just like the kind of thing would be like the same portrait with different hair color or a different shirt color or something or facing a different direction. Yeah, Dolph and Macellin are pretty lame passable units, and Armor Knight is just kind of a cruddy class in this game. So yeah, not really worth using at all. Thomas joins at the same time as these guys. He's an archer. His base level is actually pretty high, so there's that for him. He's his base level is 8. So if you have an Orion's Bolt laying around to promote him, not a bad idea. I don't know if you want another sniper laying around, or if you for whatever reason, so you can just like get him 2 levels as quick as possible, give him the promotion item, and you have kind of like another George running around if you want another archer. So I think Thomas is actually kind of better than Gordon in just because he requires less investment. But I don't know. That might be a hot take in some way. If you want another archer, go ahead and use Thomas. I think he's pretty bad. He's still like not good though. He's like painfully average. And finally, from this squad here, we have Boa. Now, Boa is basically Wendell that joins freaking 9 chapters later or whatever it is. Super fast, high enough weapon level to use all the things. Boa is is interesting. Really good staff bot. Can do all sorts of stuff. So honestly, Boa is probably the best of this group, and you can use warp at base and things like that, and different good chipping and good staff utility. Boa's pretty good. Okay. The next chapter we have recruits in is 13. Chapter 13. First we have Beck, who is the same class as Jake. Very similar unit, so I'm not really going to go too much into it. You just have Marth visit the village in the middle there of the map, and he pops out, and you have another ballistician, wood shooter, whatever they're called in this game. I put ballista on the screen because that's what they are in FE1, but I'm not really sure what they are here. The translations that I've seen are all different and weird. Now we have Astrum, who is a promoted hero, just chilling on the map. You can find him pretty easily. He's a hero, so I think he might be the only hero on the map. There might be maybe one other or something. But anyways, Astrum, you have Medea talk to him actually, which is interesting. You wouldn't think she would recruit anyone, but she definitely does. She recruits Astrum, and Astrum is a solid hero pre-promote. There's not much else to him. His stats are pretty good: 14 speed, 14 skill, 8 strength. Pretty passable things. If you don't have Agma or like Agma or Navarre or something trained up at this point, and you need a hero or you need someone to fill a slot, Astrum can do that for you. His weapon level's high enough to use Silver Sword and stuff. So pretty solid replacement unit, honestly, at this point. Ooh, 2 of my favorite units are next. I love these 2 units. Really good. Really good units. Particularly the first one, Pala. Pala is a Pegasus Knight who joins in chapter 14. She has to talk to Marth. I believe she will charge down Marth and talk to him, actually. And she is really just like those base stats though. 7 strength is okay, but 14 speed and 9 defense is pretty awesome. And she's only 2 levels away from promoting. So if you have a Dragon Whip or a Legion Whip or whatever they call it in this game laying around, give it to Pala, and she can just nuke dudes, Not nuke dudes, but she essentially just becomes another Minerva on the field, which is always welcome. Always welcome. Pala is really good. Joining at the same time as Pala is Katria. Same thing. She'll just run up and talk to Marth, or fly up and talk to Marth. Also a Pegasus Knight. She's only level 3 with somewhat comparable stats to Pala and better growth rates in general. So she can surpass Pala relatively easily with work, with levels put into her. But that's the whole thing. She requires a lot more investment than Pala does. So that is the give and take there. So if you want to use Katria, I mean, I wouldn't even fault you for using both Katria and Pala, to be fair. I probably will and do. I like them both a lot. So yeah, great units. Katria is great. Katria's great. All right, now for chapter 16, we have Aaron. Aaron's a paladin. You visit the village on the left on the map. There's 2 villages next to each other. You can only visit one of them in chapter 16 because of some story reason. But you can only visit one of them. If you visit the left one, you get Aaron, who is a paladin. Aaron the paladin is okay. Again, replacement unit. His base stats are passable for the time, but honestly, I think the other option is probably just for raw combat is probably a better unit. But of course, Aaron has 10 move over which is 3 more move than the other guy has. So again, if you visit the other village, the right village, you get Samson, a hero, with better base stats than what you'll see with Aaron, just generally. Especially the 15 speed is really good. And 10 strength is awesome. But again, he only has 7 move. I tend to pick Samson in this game, just because the movement isn't as important to me, I guess. So yeah, probably Samson, in my opinion, is a little better. But it's up to you. Both are fine picks. And finally, in this chapter, we have Zane, a chameleon or commando or whatever the translation they're going to use for this game. I'm not really sure what they're going to call his class. But essentially, Zane's stats don't matter because Zane can just transform into an ally. So you can essentially say you have, your Minerva and you give her a bunch of stab boosters. She's super strong or whatever. She's this amazing godlike unit. Well, you can just freaking have Zane copy her, and then you have 2 Minervas. And that is pretty cool. So there's almost never any reason to not use Zane. He's just a good unit, man. He can just he can become your best unit, or he can become your best staff bot. He is awesome. Really useful. All right, next we have Est. You recruit her by she will talk to Marth on enemy phase. You definitely want to recruit her. She gives you a really powerful weapon, really good item. So definitely recruit her. Very important. Okay. Her whole gimmick is that she joins really late. At a low level. She joins at level 5. Really late in the game. With passable, with decent base stats for her level. But she will most likely be behind everybody. But the thing is, her growth rates are insane. 70 strength, 70 skills, 70 weapon level, 70 speed, 60 luck. If you do train her, you put a ton of investment into her, she's going to be great. But that's the thing. It's a ton of investment. So most people will tell you that Est is bad. But if you want to train her, go for it. She can be really, really good if you want to invest all your time into her, All right, remember Bantu? And we said you need Bantu to recruit another unit. Well, now is the time. Chapter 19, we have Tiki the Manakite, or Dragon Transformer Lady. I just put Dragon on the screen because I'm not sure what they're going to call her in this translation. Tiki is okay. Talk to her with Bantu. She is similar to Bantu. Her thing is that she has a dragon stone that when she does have it, gives her a bunch of defense. It gives her 15 defense, and also it's effective against other dragons besides the final boss. So that is actually pretty cool. So she's good at taking out other dragons as a dragon. So she's a really great dragon on dragon violence is it's kind of her thing. With her divine stone. So yeah, she's actually pretty okay. You can field her. Take out dragons. She has I believe she has insane growth rates. Yeah, they're pretty great. But the thing is, her weapon is gonna break, and she only gets one of them. Oh, never mind. It doesn't break in this game. That's a total lie. Never mind. Use her as much as you want. Train her. It's fun. But she joins at a low level, so that's kind of the problem. You know, like level 5 with like mediocre stats, I guess, is her thing in this game. Sorry, I'm used to every other incarnation of her. Her weapon breaks and she's useless. And like other dragons, like Fa or Fae or whatever, and the other dragons. Dang it, I can't remember their names. The one that looks like a chicken in FE6. That one. I like the chicken one. Anyways, next we have Lawrence, or Lawrence, depending on the translation. He is a general, which is unique. He's the only general you can recruit because Armor Knights don't promote into generals in this game. To recruit him, you talk to him with Ceda. And he is, he's fine, Solid replacement unit. 16 base defense is pretty awesome. 34 base HP is also pretty awesome. 11 strength at this point is fine. 15 weapon level means he can use whatever weapon that is at his disposal. So that's great. But, I probably wouldn't choose to field him in place of other units that have been training throughout the game. But again, if you're going Iron Man or something like that and you just need a slot filled, he's a good pick. His big detriment is 5 move. But other than that, pretty good combat unit. And he's slow too. That's a thing. So mages will like eat him alive, but otherwise he's pretty good. Okay, now we have Ellis. Or Elise? Elise? I don't know. I'm just going to call her Ellis. Ellis is a priest that joins at the beginning of chapter 24. Just automatically from the start. And her gimmick is that she has a special staff that she can use at a special place in chapter 24 that revives a dead ally. So that's kind of like her gimmicky thing. Otherwise, she's just in their staff bot. And finally, last unit in the game joins at the last chapter 25, at the very beginning of it. We have Goto. Goto is just I'll just read his stats. He's ridiculous. 38 HP, 20 skill, 20 weapon level, 20 speed, 15 defense, 7 resistance. The only unit in the game with a resistance stat. He's just really good. 15 defense. It's insane for a magic guy. He's a bishop. You can use any staff in the game. You can use any magic in the game. Comes with some really great ones. Doesn't hurt to I think he's auto deployed. So you're just gonna use him. He's great. Great unit. Anyways, that's gonna do it for this guide. I'm sorry, that was long. We're pushing 45 minutes. We're close to 45 minutes. But hey, we talked about all 52 characters. Again, 52 freaking characters. That's so freaking many, man. But we're done. We talked about them all. But let me know in the comments, what are your thoughts on these characters? Are you excited to use them? Do you have any questions? If I missed something and you want me to talk about it, I'll either respond to your comment, or hopefully someone else will respond to your comment that knows better than I do on whatever subject. So yeah, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't. Like the video, share it with all your friends playing FE1, and I'll talk to you later.